Welcome to the Mind Chimp podcast.
Hey Spencer, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks very much. Thanks for having me.
Not bad. So, what a lovely office you have here.
Thank you very much.
It's
Cool,
brilliant.
isn't it?
As soon as I seen the pool table, I knew I was in a good place.
Tell me about it. The pool table was cool, and then when we put the ping pong table on top of it, it was even better.
It's legit.
Yeah,
It's legit.
absolutely.
So Spencer, I guess, before we get cracking and jumping in, I ask you to kind of summarise and give me your logline of who you are and what you do.
Yeah. Okay.
Can you remember what you said?
Yeah, absolutely. So, insatiably trying to understand the universe and everything in it, including myself, carving the undulations of life on a perpetual mission to understand and realise one's potential.
Okay, I love that. Okay, and we'll pick up on that in just a sec.
Cool.
So, what I want you to do, Spencer, is before we jump in, I want you to pick 4 numbers from 1 to 100.
4 numbers. Okay. 10,
Yeah.
19,
19,
85,
85,
and 100.
and 100. So that's 10, 19, 85, and 100. We'll come back to them later
Okay,
on.
cool.
Don't worry about that. So, question.
Yeah.
When you was a child
Yeah.
and the teacher would ask you, what is it you want to be when you grow up? What is it you would say?
So there was 2 main things that I wanted to be when I grew up, and one of them was a scientist, but I'd probably say the main one was a fighter pilot.
Okay. Why?
Because I've always been inspired and fascinated and completely in awe of anything that flies. And I used to go to air shows with my father, and so even from when I was probably 3, 4, 5 years old, looking up at the sky and seeing these extremely loud, extremely fast machines pulling, high G turns, I just thought I want to do that. So, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, cool. So, I know you, Spencer, you're part of the WhatsApp group and stuff like that, the Personal Learning Network, but people out there probably don't know who Spencer is.
Yep.
So I guess, if possible, could you give me a bit of a brief of your bio, where you've come from to where you are now, and how have you got there?
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess, how far do you want me to go back, or do you want me to just keep this kind of as a professional look back, or do you want me to go back a little bit further? Or
Yeah, I mean, don't go back to when you was 10.
Okay.
But yeah, kind of go back to what's kind of got you into this creative
sure.
atmosphere that you're in now.
Okay, yeah, no problems at all. So obviously we mentioned there that I wanted to be a fighter pilot. That didn't obviously quite happen, and so up until I was 19, I was going to be a professional footballer. I decided that that wasn't for me, and I had this belief that I could do anything that I turned my hand to. We'll probably come on to that a little bit later, how that was perhaps slightly over optimistic. And so anyway, I stopped playing football, and I went to university. I did a creative course to start with, but I didn't quite get on with that, so I came out of that and I got a job in sales.
Okay.
In the telecoms industry. So this was back in the day where any old company could set up and you could ring anybody's number and ask them if they needed an orange upgrade, right? We're talking right back in the when phone deals were done, perhaps not so ethically, shall we say. So we did that a little bit, and I kind of carved my teeth, or sharpened my teeth slightly, in terms of sales. But it was all a little bit, shall we say, unstructured, and it was all a little bit hit and miss, and I didn't kind of really like it too much. And a friend of mine said, why don't you go and get a job for one of the main telecoms companies? So I got a job at Vodafone. In fact, that job came about quite unusually. I went for my first ever job interview and got asked to sell a pen, and made a complete hash of it. But then later on, the chap rang me and said, there's a job at Vodafone, perhaps you should go for that one. And so we did that, and I got the job, and I worked in the retention department. So that was, you want to quit your contract. So I ask you why you want to quit your contract, and then hopefully persuade you not to. So I did that for 4 or 5 years in Stoke, and then kind of moved to other sales departments, and then we were moved into a lovely big new call centre, and that was all well and good. But again, I was constantly asking and wondering what I'm actually doing with myself. Where do I actually want to go? And I kind of almost lost that direction a little bit. And I guess we'll perhaps come on to more detail on that a bit later on. So from that point there, I then stayed in a sales role after getting a late degree in music technology, which is a strange thing for me to have chosen, because I'd never picked up a musical instrument or tried to sing or do anything musical prior. Did that and then got a job for a software engineering company. So this was a very different kind of selling. It was multi-stakeholder, very complex, but it was very technical software engineering. So that was for a company called Mobica, a really cool company, really great guys. And I worked there for a number of years. But I've obviously known Mobedia. I know those two names are similar. It's just a coincidence. But I've known the guys here at Mobedia, Johnny, our founder, and Gary, our creative director, the rest of the guys. We're all best friends. We've known each other since we were young boys messing around with, early computers, right? And so we've talked about working together for years and years and years, but the timing was never quite right on my side or on the agency side. But John said to me about 3 years ago, I want you to come and work for me. And so all of a sudden, I find myself in the creative industry. And that's kind of how we got to, or how I got to where I am today. So it was all extremely new to me. All of a sudden, I'm talking about the creative process behind producing great film and animation, and the process behind creating video games, and technical processes behind designing and developing mobile applications, and quite often quite complex technical systems and things like this. And so it was a lot to take in, and all this kind of cool stuff. But so that's kind of, I guess, how I found myself working for Mobedia, and how I found myself working in learning and development, or in organisational change, or however you might want to, call the area that we work in or specialise in. So.
Okay, cool. So I guess not a lot of people probably know, I know about it, but not a lot of people here will probably know about you and your Barcelona story. So, maybe the listeners know about that.
So you kind of dropped that one on me there. So okay, how do I make this safe for broadcast? Okay, so the Barcelona story sticks out to me because it is a story that happened in a professional sense. Working for one of the previous companies I've just mentioned there, we were on the way to what was the biggest pitch I'd ever done. And we were potentially going to do work for a Spanish company, hence it's being in Barcelona. And we were pitching to about 10 of their engineering heads. And there was me, a couple of my Polish colleagues, and in effect my manager at the time. And so I said to my dad, I said, Dad, right, I've got the biggest pitch of my life. I'll go to Barcelona, it could potentially be huge. And we're talking a big number on what the contract would have been, the biggest one I would have ever got by a long shot. So I'm really excited. And so the old man treats me to a new suit. And so I think, oh, okay, fantastic. So I get my new suit and I get it on in the morning of flight, and I get on the plane and we fly to Barcelona. I'm feeling pretty good about myself, right? I've got my new suit on. I'm going to do the biggest pitch. I'm prepared. I'm feeling good. And me and my manager, we flew in, and we were due to pick up our two Polish colleagues who'd stayed the night prior, and from the Nou Camp Stadium. And the taxi that we booked at the airport didn't show. And we're thinking, looking at the watches, thinking, oh man, we're going to be running short on time here. I'm already starting to get a bead of sweat, and this kind of stuff. So we just jumped in a taxi, any old taxi, just this yellow taxi goes by. We jumped in it, and we go and pick our colleagues up. And just before we get to the Nou Camp, we're in traffic. We're in a dual carriageway, and I've got my new suit on. I've got my new jacket on, right? I was feeling pretty good about myself, but I'm really hot. Okay. I'm sweating. There's no air conditioning in the taxi. It's the worst taxi you've ever got in. It's the oldest car you've ever got in, right? It must be the oldest taxi in Barcelona. And so I think I'm going to have to take this jacket off. And so I open the front seat, open the door to step out, to take my jacket off, to jump back into the car. And I open the car door, and a guy on a moped, bam, straight into the door, bent the door right round, moped goes on its side, the guy skids down the road. You can imagine, I'm thinking, obviously the first thing that springs to mind is, oh no, I've hurt someone. How do we deal with the situation? The taxi driver speaks no word of English, I speak no Spanish, and I've potentially just, killed a guy, right?
Yeah.
Hopefully not. Hopefully I haven't even hurt him, right? So anyway, so I jumps out the taxi, jumps out, the door was already open, it was stuck to the front wing at this point. And I run down the street, and the guy's kind of a slightly older guy, and he's kind of picking himself up, and I help him up, and luckily he's not too badly injured, and he's got a couple of grazes on his arms and stuff like this. And so I'm thinking, oh crikey, this is a bad situation here. I don't know what happens insurance-wise, and blah 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 blah. And we kind of pick the guy up, we dust him off, we sit him back on his moped, and we go round the corner out of the traffic, and we. The taxi driver and the guy on the moped, they swap details, they're speaking in Spanish, they start speaking pretty furiously, and I'm thinking, what's going on here? And at this point, obviously now knowing that the guys both, I start not dead and not injured, I start to think about the pitch again, right? And already we were getting short on time. So I'm getting a little bit stressed. We haven't picked the colleagues up yet. And I think, right, okay. And the taxi driver's getting pretty irate at me. And I mean, starts to get really irate. I haven't got a clue what he's saying. I assume it's something to do with insurance. And I'm going, look, I just take my business card, ring that number. In a few days' time, we'll arrange it. We'll sort it all out. But look, I've really got to get to this meeting. And he's going, and he's waving his arms. I go, look, I've really got to get here. It's, I really got to get there. And so we couldn't get in another taxi and just run away. We couldn't. I'm thinking he's going to ring his taxi friends. There's going to be an altercation. Yeah. We're going to have to start looking after ourselves here. And, it's a nightmare. So anyway, I get back in a taxi and I goes, look, we need to get to this location. And the guys kind of calmed down a little bit at this point, just until I try and shut the door. And the door doesn't shut because it's obviously been bent round, and I'm slamming it like this with two hands. It's going bam, bam, and I'm slamming it. And the guy has to get out of his driver's seat, walk round and kick the door shut. And so now I'm stuck in the front seat. My boss is in the back. We pick our two colleagues up and we say, right, how do we get to this place here, expecting it to be 20 minutes away? It's like an hour and 15 minutes away. And you can imagine I'm in the front seat of this taxi on my way to the biggest pitch I've ever done with my colleagues, having almost killed a guy. And it's stressful. And it's the most awkward taxi journey ever because the taxi driver wants to kill me. It's quite obvious. Yeah. And so anyway, he drops us off. And again, he has to come round and lever the door open to let me out. And then he has to kick the door back shut again. And I get my laptop bag out and we walk off. And by this point, my nice new suit was dripping wet with sweat. I wasn't feeling so great about myself anymore, and I was highly stressed, and I mean highly stressed. And so I thought all was lost, and I was stressed. But we went in and we did the pitch, and I kind of took a couple of minutes to really refocus and a couple of deep breaths and forget what had just happened and really try and bring myself back to the moment. And we did the pitch, and for some obscure reason, the pitch went really, really well. Okay. And we ended up winning the work, which is fantastic. And it was just a strange story of a really highly stressful situation and a high risk situation, which somehow enabled me to focus in a moment and actually deliver what was probably one of the best pitches I think I'd ever done. So, and which won us the work, which was great. So it was a horrible journey, but a good pitch.
So that's probably one of the best stories. So it's really interesting. I wonder. Let's say we could go back time. Yeah. I wonder how that would be if you didn't have that bump in that car. Yeah. Because there could be an argument to say because that happened, you didn't have time to overanalyze how you was going to deliver, and you didn't have that whole. Exactly. You had a stressful drive to the place. Yeah. Because that awkward moment with the taxi driver. Yeah. But you didn't have time to really home in how you're going to deliver. You probably just delivered exactly how you are.
I think it was. I think you're totally right, and I think that in effect, from the moment we walked out of the airport, realised the taxi wasn't coming, got in Barcelona's oldest taxi. From that point, it was all a blur. Yeah. And I had no time to consider what might happen if things go wrong. I had no time to consider what happens if I fluff my words. I had no time to consider, do I remember, what I'm going to talk about on slide 5. I had no time to consider any of those things. No time for doubt to set in. No time for me to ambush myself with negativity. Yeah. Because I was forced into a scenario where I was in a fight or flight situation and I had to stand and fight, not in the literal sense, but in the sense that we had to, we were in a scenario where we had to deal with the situation. And so perhaps that had a lot to do with my frame of mind when I got to that meeting. I was in a high, what my mind and body thought was a high threat situation, and I was enabling me to really focus on that moment. And also I was kind of in this, this stand and fight state where nothing was going to beat me at that stage. I was just there in the moment, and I had to perform because everything was at stake. Now it wasn't, but maybe my mind was. There was no difference deep down in my mind, and so it always sticks out as one of the strangest scenarios that I've had in my professional career, but also probably one of the prouder ones because one, I didn't kill the guy until he won the work.
So you managed to keep that murder off your CV.
Exactly.
However, one of the stories which you did tell me, and you're probably not prepared for this one, was how you're a hero to some girl. In some girls' eyes, you are a hero, which involved a carve raven, right?
So this is probably a slightly more unusual story, and I want to make it clear that I'm not medically trained in any way, shape, or form, right? And so let me explain. So anyway, right? I used to live in a place called Trentham, big pub called the Trentham Hotel, and they did super cheap carvery, and so I'd be in there every other day, and I quite like going in there on my own, have a carvery, consider the world around me or whatever it might be, do some thinking, and so it's 2:00 in the afternoon in the middle of the week. I'm eating my carvery. Around the corner is like the little area where you get your carvery, but I'm kind of the only guy in this bar area, apart from some old chap right down at the other end of the bar. So I'm sitting there and I'm munching away, and I hear a strange noise, and I think I'm going crazy at this point. And it kind of almost sounds like a baby crying, but there's no babies in there, and there's no strange. It's just bizarre. So I look up, I look around, and I think, okay, maybe nothing's happening. I carry on eating. And I hear it again. I look around, and the scene around me hasn't changed. So I dig back into my roast potatoes, and then it gets a little bit louder. And so I get up out of my chair, and I walk over to the bar, and I look over the bar. No, I can't see anything, but I can still hear this sound. So I start to back up, to sit back down, to carry on eating my carvery, but curiosity in me just overcomes this, right? And so I look over the bar and I think, someone's trapped in the glasses cupboard. What's going on? So I jump up onto the bar and lean on it with my hands and look over, and the bar girl is on the floor and she's convulsing and she's kind of foaming at the mouth and she's obviously having a fit. And so I've never seen this happen. I'm like, whoa, crikey, and so I mobile out, ring 999 and the emergency services, and start talking through what's going on here. Now, there's just me and the girl who's having the fit, and on the other side of the bar, and the bloke at the end of the bar who still hasn't really taken notice of what's going on. So I'm saying to him, I need your help. Can you come over here? She's having a fit. And he just quite literally it's not my problem, and does nothing about it. So I run round to where the carvery guys are and say, you need to go get the bar manager quickly. One of your staff's having a fit. Bar manager runs round. Now, again, I'm not medically trained. I don't know if I should be trying to restrain her or I should be trying to get her in recovery. I just don't know these things. So I'm speaking to the emergency services. They're guiding me through this. They're asking me what her condition is, what's actually happening, what medication she might have in her pocket. So I'm trying to look in her pockets. If she's got any medication, I can at least tell them. The bar manager is completely clueless at this point as to what should be happening. And so I end up speaking with the emergency services, and then the ambulances comes, is on its way. So the bar manager at this point, and the young girl has slowly started to calm down a little bit at this point. She's not convulsing as strongly, and she seems to be kind of coming back round. So the bar lady says, can you go and make sure the ambulance comes to the right place? So
I thought you were going to say, can you pour a pint?
No, yeah, I can imagine that. Yeah, for myself. And so I run outside, obviously with my carvery in my hand, and sit on the wall at the end of the pub car park waiting for this ambulance to come along. And I eat the carvery on the pub wall, and as soon as I wave it in, and the ambulance guys come in, and by that point she'd calmed down and there was no issue and she was okay. And it turns out that she was epileptic, and this was quite a common occurrence. So she was never really, I guess, in any huge danger, not to my knowledge at the time. And so, but so this kind of was all happening whilst I was eating this carvery, and kind of got the phone in between my ear and the thing like this. And I'm talking to the emergency to see what's going on. And so it was all right in the end. And the bar manager thanked me and said, "Look, thanks very much for that. I genuinely appreciate you ringing the ambulance and helping guide them in and talk them through it. And by the way, next time you come in, your carvery is for free." So. I guess I won that day, which was great. So I've got a free carvery.
Just a bit. What I'll do is when this is Wednesday, I'll put on when a hero.
It was a bizarre day. It always seems to happen when I'm eating as well. It's strange.
I'm not going for food with you.
Yeah. Yes, stay safe.
Yeah.
Stay safe.
So maybe just probably changing gears a little bit.
No problem.
But, I guess I'm going to say some words to you.
Okay.
I want you to tell me what comes to mind when I say these words. Okay, are you ready?
Yeah.
Social media,
Good.
digital learning,
Can be better.
Spencer Martin.
Pretty sound.
Yes, I like it. So go for it. Social media, good.
Yeah.
Digital learning
Yeah.
could be better. Explain.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think social media is a good thing. And the reason for that is because it's too obvious an answer to say that it's a bad thing. I also think that it's terrible in a lot of ways. And I think that it compounds a lot of issues that society has or that humanity has in general. And it compounds this strange attitudes that people have an opinion, and that opinion is automatically as valid as a fact, perhaps, or that kind of stuff. And I think it's a bad thing in the respect that it drives such misinformation and validates misinformation and the spreading of it and the confirmation of it, and it validates and it compounds confirmation bias in a negative sense. So those are all the typical things to say about it which are bad, right? But the reason why I said it's good is because I'm an optimist really at heart, and I see the way that it connects people together in fantastic ways. And to give you just an example of that, I was with a friend of mine who was really having a bad time, and it was to do with a complex relationship with family and stuff like that, and a lot of the communications were being done via text, and there was no context, there's no tone, there's none of these things, and things were being misconstrued and stuff like that. And I said, no, let's jump on a FaceTime with these guys together. And we did like a big FaceTime with these guys, and do you know what, that seeing the amount of stress in that person reduce, because they could see the other people's faces and their body, their body language, and they could hear the tone of voice, and that reconnected those people in a way that they hadn't been connected for months prior to that. And that disconnection between those particular people had caused so much stress and so much anxiety. And just seeing how technology, and in that case social media, and it was a particular messaging or video messaging platform, had lowered that stress and anxiety and brought those people back together. And from that point, they had scheduled FaceTimes. There's a bit of distance between them. And it really helped them from an emotional point of view, but from a family point of view, and all this kind of stuff, right? So having seen specific examples of how social media can be used for good, I will always automatically say that it's good, although that there's a lot of things I hate about it. So that's the first point, right?
Okay.
And digital learning, when I say that it can be done better, that's not automatically saying that I can do it better than other people, or that Mobedia can. I think the point that I make when I say that it can be done better is the fact that it's been done badly previously, right? And I think that with digital learning prior, it's just been the case that we've taken learning ideals, or we've taken, I say everybody, theories and content that's been delivered or facilitated in a different way, whether it be face-to-face or whether it be one-to-one or whether it be whatever, and then it's just been converted into something that you click through online. And that's not so engaging, right? That's not that brilliant for memory retention. That doesn't get to know me, or that doesn't do any of those things that are important if you really want to influence somebody. And so that's what I mean when I say it can be done better. Digital learning, digital tools are amazing. And when we consider some more fundamental things before even considering what we can do with digital, about how people interact and about how people behave, and the triggers that influence and motivate them and things like that, I think digital can be used to really exaggerate some of those things and drive great change.
Okay. The answer to the Spencer Martin one,
yeah,
we're going to find out in the long-winded way anyway.
Cool.
So, random question. Somebody's that are aimed to be thought-provoking, but also quick-fire.
Okay.
But if you're not quick-fire, don't worry, because if you want to jump into any, jump into any.
Okay.
So if I was to ask you if you had to give a book as a gift to 3 people, what book would it be, and why?
Oh, that's a great question. So, do you want me to who those people would be, or just 3 random people? It's more about the book, right?
It's more about the book, yeah.
Okay, cool. So it would probably be A Brief History of Almost Everything by Bill Bryson.
Okay.
And the reason for that is Bill Bryson's a great author, and not only does he take you on fantastic adventures, but he's also very, very adept at talking about complex things quite simply, and so making it very accessible. And because he takes you on an adventure with it, it's entertaining, right? And I read that book, and in fact, I've listened to the audiobook many times over. And the book is, I guess, well, the title of the book is a nod to Stephen Hawking's A Brief History of Time, right? A brief history of almost everything. And what he does is he's gone on an adventure, a 3 or 4 year adventure, where he's explored scientific endeavour and scientific understanding in physics, in biology, in chemistry, in all of the sciences. And over this 3 or 4 year time frame, he's gone and interviewed some of the most preeminent scientists in some of these fields. And the insight and the knowledge and the things that they talk about is just super interesting. And it just gave me a new way to consider things and look at that, and really gave me a new respect for what human beings are our potential as human beings when we think critically and we apply logic and reason, and really the amazing the amazing power of the human mind, and some of the amazing things that people have hypothesized, and then we've proven later, because technology has caught up, all kinds of stuff like that. The brilliance of people, when we talk about, Einstein and gravitational waves, whatever it might be. I mean, that's not mentioned in the books. That was only proven a lot after the book was published. But in effect, the crux of it is, it gives you a view into scientific endeavour, and it puts you on an adventure. And I always like talking about science and sharing my passion for science with people. And I guess that book is just a great way to do that. So that's why I would share that book.
Okay. So he has a podcast as well, don't he?
I actually haven't listened to the podcast.
I'm sure he has a podcast. I've got Freakonomics in my head, but I'm not 100% sure. Maybe that's where I've heard that book.
Yes.
So yeah, I've also read that book.
It's cool.
Great.
Yeah.
The other book I dip in and out of because it's quite a long audio book.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so let me ask you this question.
Okay.
So while we're on books, and I make an assumption.
Yeah, okay.
Is that the one book what changed your life, or is it another book what might have helped change your life, or completely change your mindset, or who you are, or?
Yeah, so okay, that's an interesting one. So it certainly, I'd say it certainly helped in that respect. I think actually probably A Brief History of Time is a book that I didn't understand it, and so that I would probably say it frustrated me, the fact that I couldn't understand it, and that really drove curiosity in me, because I was frustrated by the fact that I just didn't automatically understand it. But I was fascinated by some of the concepts and things that Hawkins talks about, right? And particularly interested in physics, and some of these concepts are just so mind-boggling. But that book, I would probably say, changed or really drove this curiosity in me. And now, as I continue on this journey on trying to understand the world around me, right, and it comes back to my logline, trying to understand the universe and everything in it, including myself, that book, I guess, drove a lot of that. And when I start to understand things now, which I can then refer back to in the book that I didn't understand at the time, and I was frustrated then, and I'm inspired now because I do get it, then actually, yeah, that's driven change in my life, absolutely.
Okay, cool. If I was to ask you to explain what you do to a 3-year-old, how would you explain it?
I talk far too much to people all day long about how to drive positive change within organisations.
Okay.
Through digital innovation.
Cool. I like that. So we talk about 80-20 rules. So example being 20% of my contacts I dial 80% of the time. The other 80% I dial 20% of the time.
Yeah.
Do you have any 80-20 rules what you apply? So like kind of what's the one thing you do to get the biggest impact in your day? It could be professional, all these questions can be professional and personal. Take it however you like.
Yeah, sure. So in terms of kind of time management and how I split my focus, would you say is the question we're based on? Or
it can be based on anything. So say for instance, maybe you from a design point of view,
Yeah.
maybe you always apply this because it'll always bring you 80% of results, and
Yeah.
then you build around that.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
is there any? It's kind of like more of a hack more than anything.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Okay, I get you. I think I get you. So for me, it's, I guess, I have to work at quite a fast pace to be successful in what my role is here at Mobedia. So if we talk about it in a professional sense, so I need to speak to as many people as I can, but they need to be the right people, and I need to have the right message. So being able to define the myriad of things that we're able to do here at Mobedia, and then distill them into something that's interesting and easily digestible, and then figuring out who to tell those stories to, and then actually finding those people, starting that conversation, and kind of going from there. That can be quite it has to be at a fast pace, but it has to be done with some intelligence, right? So I tend to kind of split time into, well, it comes down to audience growth, audience interaction for me. So I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn, and so it's always a split between time spent cultivating that network and providing insight into that network and trying to antagonize conversation within that network, and then what my role actually says I should be doing, which is identifying and scoping and delivering projects, right?
Okay.
So it's kind of a bit of a split. The two help each other, but it's not 80-20. Some days it's 40-60. Some days it's 100%. I just want to write content and do vlogs and put stuff out there. Or I might just spend all day trying to think of something interesting to say to somebody that I've been wanting to speak to a long time. It might not be to sell to them. It might be just because I really want to talk to them because I'm personally interested in doing so. So my days, every day is different, and more often than not, every conversation is different. The tricky bit is maintaining some level of consistency so that you're at some level of performance that are enabling you to hit whatever target you put either on yourself or is expected of me from the business.
Okay, cool. So we're probably just dipping a bit more into your personal life as well a little bit. So what is there ever been a point in your life where something's happened to you what's been deemed a negative to you in the moment, but then ended up being, I call it a double negative, but it's ended up down the line it's been probably one of the most positive experiences, or it's had a real positive effect? So I call it, maybe a positive negative.
Yeah.
What's something what you took on board where you've gone, this is not really good right now, and then maybe a month later, a year later, 5 years later, I don't know.
Yeah.
You've gone, actually, I'm really glad that happened to me.
Okay. Yeah. So, okay, that's it's a tricky question actually, I guess, but yeah, I'll go with the first thing that comes to mind. So I mentioned before when I was growing up, I played at high level football. So I played a number of different clubs at academy level, and up to 18, 19, that's in effect what I was going to be. But I for the few years leading up to that point, I'd really started to fall out of love of the game, and I was really finding the motivation difficult. And like I say, up until that point, I'd been told, I've been trained, and you're going to be great at this, you're going to do that, and perhaps I had some false expectations in my mind, some over optimism in terms of what life was about and who I was and what I was capable of. And whether it be football or anything, at that point, I believed I could just do whatever I wanted, and so I decided to stop playing football, and I said to my dad, who'd put his heart and soul into making sure that I had the best possible chance of being the best possible chance of myself. Okay. And I always thank my father for that. He's the best father in the world, right? And but I totally broke his heart. He was gutted. He was absolutely gutted, and that stuck with me because I could never really explain to him why I made that decision. He just thought that I cast it off. I was lazy. I didn't want to do it, or he could never understand that. But I was never able to express to him the guilt I felt for really, the one person who I wanted to impress more than anyone in the world, my hero, my father, right? And to really hurt him like that was a big thing. So now, having gone through that process, having that sets kind of a lot of doubt in my mind, I guess, in terms of was that the right thing to do or not? But actually, I had this self-belief that stick to your decision. Be proud of that you made that decision. That's probably like the hardest decision you've made in your life up until now. And so take the positive in the fact that you were strong enough and stood up and made that decision for the best of yourself, regardless of who you might have negatively affected or hurt at that moment in time. So because from that point on, I was kind of almost chasing my tail, chasing what the next high was. In fact, if I was going to be a professional footballer, I should be a professional anything I want to be. But life doesn't work like that. And so it was the years following that when you think, I could do anything, and you realise you can't just do anything. The world doesn't work like that. Like I say, it needs a bit of a realisation, and then you go through this kind of process of real self-reflection there, a real deep reflection in terms of, it's not always a nice place to be that. And but that, I think, going through that process gives you some level of pride in yourself that you made that decision in the first place, but some level of humility, right? That you're not always right, and you're not automatically the best at everything. You're not automatically going to be a professional, whatever it might be. You're not automatically going to be this, that, and the other. And that realization that came off the back of that decision I made at that time was probably, I'd say, the most important aspect of me, is having that humility and that ability to say when, that I might be wrong about something, or I might be. My opinion's an ever-changing thing. It evolves with whenever new evidence is presented with me. I'm not so bullheaded to think that I'm always completely right. That kind of stuff. So I think that having that humility off the back of making a decision which I know hurt people, and then actually later on from that, I was so turned off football. I didn't play again for 10 years, right? And then a friend of mine asked me to go and play for his Sunday team. I said, I said no to everyone up until now. I'm not going to start playing now, mate. I'm 30 years old. And he kind of said, you're being a bit of a whatever, not playing. And I'm like, that just kind of like really niggled me. And so I went and bought some gloves and some boots, and I played for his Sunday league team, and I was terrible. I was absolutely hopeless. But I really enjoyed it properly. I was like, well, okay, I loved that. And it really drove me to I wanted to be as good as I used to be, right? Yeah. And so I started training with my old coach that I used to train with when I was playing at high level. He still ran senior sessions, right? And so we started training. 6 months down the line, I stopped playing for a club on a Saturday, and before you know it, I'm playing at a half decent standard again, and I'm absolutely loving it. And who came to watch every game and clapped me off at the end of every game was my dad. He's proud as punch, and he always said that to me, that he's, no matter what, and he's always ribbed me for stopping playing footy, but he's always said I've always been proud. So and that's just great leadership. You know what I mean? So.
Well, yeah, I think there's a lot to be said when you've got to deliver a message.
Yeah.
It's easy to deliver a message to somebody who maybe you work with. There's challenges with that, but to do that to someone who you look up to,
yeah, absolutely,
and to someone who you hold in such high regard, it's no one's better than your mum and dad, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's as high as it goes.
Yeah.
But you picked up on an interesting point about your opinions.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times you see, this is my opinion right now.
Yeah.
And then a lot of people are fixed in that, well, that's my opinion and I've got to stay with that. No, your opinion's allowed to change.
Yeah, exactly.
One day I might hate this, and the next day I might be like, you know what? Yeah. Actually, I was wrong. Yeah. I've changed my mind because of this, and this, and I was wrong. I'll hold my hands up, and this is now my opinion.
Yeah, definitely.
Your opinions aren't set in stone.
Yeah,
they're just your opinions at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So, just going on to a bit of an opinion, I guess it's a bit of a nice segment way in.
Mm-hmm.
What's the best bit of bad advice you've ever heard?
The best bit of bad advice?
Yeah, so and it could be something what you've heard recently. Yeah. It could be something what you've heard. It may be directly to you. It may be what you've overheard.
Okay.
It could be something from like 3 years ago. I don't know. But
well, the best bit of bad advice?
Yeah.
You might have put me on the spot a little bit on that one. So
good.
Bad advice. I'm trying to think of some. I mean, I've no doubt given plenty of bad advice in my time. Hopefully, I've given at least just as much good advice. Okay, cool. So,
or maybe it's something what you see in the industry what you're in.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I'd probably say that common areas of bad advice I ever see is when someone makes a statement about something which is so absolute it can't be true. So somebody says, do digital training, it's going to replace all face-to-face. Somebody says, oh, you've got to be doing games now because no one's ever going to sit in a classroom again. Someone says, people only ever learn on a mobile and nowhere else. When opinions are so matter of fact and so polar in their nature, they can't be correct. Nothing is ever that black and white. They're two things I live my life by. Nothing is black and white and everything's dynamic. They're almost two mottos that I live my life by, that I see all the time and that I observe all the time. The two things that have always stuck with me the most out of everything. If someone's able to make such a statement, such a bold statement, then I just don't believe that it can be correct. And so in our industry, you kind of see that all the time, I guess, a little bit. In learning, you see it all the time. In the creative industry, in any marketing, this is the new thing and this is the only thing you should be doing. Everything else before it is complete tosh and you shouldn't be considering it. Well, if you're able to make that statement, I don't think either you understand the new thing or the old thing. So I would say that whenever somebody gives that kind of advice, it's dangerous and incorrect in its nature because it's too absolute and too polar.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah,
I pride myself on living in a grey area.
Yeah,
just because the grey area is the evolving area.
Yeah.
Is probably the best way to kind of the way I see it. Mm-hmm. And I agree. How can you make an assumption? You which again is going to lead me to my next question. This is working out really smooth. So if I said to you, what is the future of learning?
Yeah. Okay. So I'd say the future.
Again, this is your opinion.
Okay. No problems at all. Absolutely. So for me, the future of learning is where learning is less defined as something in itself, and by that I mean that that learning will not be considered as a thing that you go and have to do and that you're forced to have to do. It's something more that you want to do and that you're inspired to do and that you're inspired to share. And so rather than having particular areas of the day that you learn, and you might read or see things where it's, you've got to learn for 30 minutes a day and the best time to do it is at 4 p.m. Well, I don't believe in that. I think that if you're given the right attitude, or you're encouraged to have the right attitude, and you're encouraged to have the right open mind, and also encourage that open-mindedness in other people, then that learning should happen from, in effect, the moment you wake up to, in effect, the moment you go to bed. And I think that in terms of the future of learning, organisations and systems and solutions and all this kind of stuff, they're going to understand so much more about you as a human being, not just about what films you like, not just about what preferences, what subjects you're interested to, or what piece of compliance training haven't you done, but on a far deeper level. So at a behavioural level, at a kind of, and people talk about it all the time, and there've been a couple of really good articles, which I guess we can share afterwards, about digital body language, and marketing and these other kind of areas that are really looking at the crux of what makes somebody tick. That's going to be happening a lot more in learning, I believe, and so making learning, and perhaps we don't use the term learning, perhaps we call it, I don't know, empowerment or inspiration or whatever, much more effective and much more personal. I mean, that's just one area that I think it's going to go into, but the way that technology will help facilitate those kind of base ideals, and immersive technology I talk about quite a lot, and it's not, a golden bullet, or it's not it's not trying to fix a problem that doesn't exist, which I see some people say. For me, innovation should not just be driven by necessity, and we shouldn't just wait to identify a problem and then fix it with some innovation, right? We should be proactive with exploring what's possible with these new things, especially when it comes to something as noble as the betterment of ourselves and everyone around us and our organisations, but at a deeper level, our society and us as human beings. And so immersive technology and these kind of cool things like that, I think, will play a big part in some of the previous things that I've mentioned there. Obviously, there's the obvious answers like artificial intelligence and big data and all this kind of cool stuff. But I think really what they will do is just enable some of those things that I've talked about there. organisations and systems and other things understanding people on a far more personal, almost biological level. I know that sounds freaky, but to enable them to, be the best versions of themselves.
Okay, cool. So just pull out a few things. So, I was talking to Laurie Hoffman the other day. Yesterday it was actually. I was talking to her about digital body language.
Yeah.
And I kind of mentioned to her, the way I see it is kind of digital breadcrumbs.
Yeah.
A person leaves a footprint behind them.
Yeah.
And it's understanding that person and tracking that person and understanding what they do. And I think, the digital body language is a bit like digital breadcrumbs.
Yeah.
We follow these breadcrumbs and we understand, we get a better idea of a person
Definitely.
and stuff. But immersive, tell me, elaborate on that a bit more. Immersive technology.
Yeah, absolutely. So
experiences, whichever.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a couple of, I guess, obvious areas for immersive technology. Perhaps high risk safety training, perhaps technical training in high expense type scenarios. For example, companies like Rolls-Royce and other companies are using these technologies because, if you break the fan blade on a jet engine, it's going to cost you a lot of money. If you do it virtually, it costs you nothing, in effect. So there's those kinds of things. But there's fundamental reasons why immersive technologies should be on the roadmap for organisations, depending on what it is that they're actually training. And as human beings, right, and with whatever your beliefs might be, but mine are that we've evolved from, a common ancestor and that stuff. And, for the last 300,000 years, we've evolved these social cognitions to tell stories, to collaborate, to sit around a fire, to use our hands in 3D space, and these kind of things, right? So we have these perceptory systems, proprioception and vestibular and all this kind of stuff. And we could go deep with this, but perhaps not for now. And so the way that our brain creates memories and creates emotional connections to particular scenarios is increased when we incorporate more of those perceptory systems in any given learning situation or any given situation, right? So if you're in 3D space, you're using your hands in 3D space, your proprioceptive system and your vestibular system, so you're moving around in a immersive scenario, then testing and data and studies and biology state that you will form a more emotive connection to that experience and so form a stronger memory because of that. So that's not to say that it's an automatic golden bullet to fix, some boring e-learning over here, but those things should be considered if what the person is remembering is really important. So,
okay.
And I think it can be used a lot potentially for leadership and all kinds of stuff like that. So things where emotion and reputation and these kinds of things are extremely important, empathy and these kinds of things, and emotional intelligence. Those, because of the nature of the technology and how it's able to evoke emotion, I think there's real value in it when exploring those areas of organisational development or learning and development, so leadership development.
So when we're talking about immersive experiences or technology, what's something what you've seen recently, what's kind of blown your mind?
Okay, yeah, absolutely. So so one thing that I saw, which, well, there's a few things that have really blown my mind. One of them is our own project, but perhaps I won't talk about that one. No shameless plug, right? No shameless plug. So there's a few. When I talk about the emotional side of things, it's a TED talk. His name's Chris. I can't remember his name, but he talks about virtual reality being an empathy machine. And what he does with that is he goes to a refugee camp in Syria and he spends 30 days with a young refugee girl and with a 360 camera, and he in effect lives her life for that period. And then he takes that content and he creates a virtual environment and puts it into the headsets and takes those headsets to, I think it's Switzerland, to a convention where there's a whole bunch of people that has the financial and political power to really change the lives of those people in that horrendous, terrible scenario, a refugee camp, running for their lives, that kind of thing. And so if you were to show a video, or if you were to give them, at its very lowest, you give them a piece of paper with a paragraph describing that, and they probably screw it up and throw it in the bin. You show them perhaps a video, there's a higher emotive connection. You put them in a scenario where they're fully immersed in that young girl's environment and they're able to walk around with her in that environment. That connection is so much more on a human level because of the way that we've evolved, right? That they're able to feel her pain on such a higher level. The empathy that system has created is so much higher. And so it actually led to a number of funds being set up, I believe, and it led to a whole host of amazing things that those people were able to do to get those people out of that situation, because he wanted to give a message, and for that message to be, it was the plight of these people going through this horrendous situation, and wanted to drive change because of it. So it was done in such a way that did drive change and had a great impact because there was such a higher emotive connection to the message.
So it's I find that's fascinating.
Yeah.
Kind of walking in their shoes and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly.
And have you ever read the book Ready Player One?
I haven't.
Okay, so I think it's coming out. Actually, I think it's coming out this week. And they talk about, we have this environment called the Oasis.
Yeah.
And it's escapism. People put their headset on and put the gloves on, and they walk in this environment, and they can meet people, and they can buy things, and profit and stuff. It all exists there. How far away would you say we are from that?
Well, to be fair, I wouldn't say that far. The thing is there's obviously barriers to entry with the technology, because the technology is quite expensive, right? So as a consumer, you have to go and buy a big headset or a PC to run it, or whatever it might be. That's changing now as processing power, becomes much higher in small devices. So you can have the processor in the headset, and the cost of this technology is coming down all the time. That means that it's more accessible, but it also means that at the very highest end of where this technology is being pushed, at the very kind of furthest research and development side of things, it just opens up possibilities, right? And so really kind of your imagination is the only thing that holds you back from developing something, I guess, like that. The thing is, you've got to immerse somebody in it with your eyes and your ears and your hands. Now, you can do that whilst they're still sat in a chair, but you kind of still know that you're in, but you've now got these other companies that are developing these amazing haptic technologies where you're kind of, it's strange to describe, but it's like a concave bowl, and you put these special shoes on and you're able to run. So you run round, so you can change direction. You're on the spot, but you can run. So you're in this scenario and you're running forwards, you can run backwards, you crouch, and it's able to take this. Now you've got a suit on that's able to apply heat and vibration to any part of your body. So it's able to supply some kind of stimulus to your body. So again, it's the same way as your PlayStation pad, it vibrates when you get a heavy challenge on FIFA, and you kind of, whoa.
Yeah.
It's like that, but times a million, right? Well, not times a million, whatever the number is, I don't know. But, so it's like that. So we're getting to the point now where I'm not saying that L&D people should be going and considering buying these suits. I'm talking blue sky here, so let's just make sure that we've stepped outside of L&D a little bit here, and we're just kind of talking about the technologies. So I wouldn't say that we were that far from it as a concept, but in terms of how it's portrayed in the film, obviously is that's complete fantasy, but yeah, I wouldn't say we're too far.
So I think for me, the joint is getting the people used to the technology. I think for me personally, the limitations to VR right now is the fact that you've got to have this headset.
Yeah.
I think whoever figures out how to kind of do AR, VR without having a big clunky headset, and if you look at something like, people say Google Glass was a massive failure. For me, I think it was a massive success.
Yeah.
Why? Well, one, it got the people used to having this technology, embracing it as another layer on top of their reality. And if you think of it from a really clever view, it got people used to having Google Assistant. Yeah. Look now, look where we are now. We've got Google Assistant in our house. We've got Amazon Echo. We've got all these, and it wouldn't surprise me now if Google re-released that Google Glass, or Apple jumped on it, or whoever jumped on it. I just think, while people look at Google Glass, the Google Pixel, the earbuds.
Yeah.
Now it can translate.
Yeah, it's cool.
It's amazing.
It's amazing. Just
like, wow.
Yeah, so cool. I think with the VR thing, because the whole point in VR is that you're totally immersed. It's totally virtual. Yeah. And so obviously no one's going to be walking down the street with a VR headset on, because you'd walk into lampposts and stuff like that. But that has a very different use case and potential than, say, AR, which obviously is just an overlay of information onto the real world. Yeah. So Microsoft have released those glasses, or at least the kind of prototype of those really cool glasses. They actually look like really fashionable glasses, to be fair. And with that, it's direct retinal input, so you don't have the big square thing like the Google Glass is. It's literally, it's not like a goggle that you see on like an Apache Pilot's thing. It's literally firing the light directly into your retina.
Is that Magic Leap?
No, so it's not that one. So
okay.
So Magic Leap Magic Leap are real pioneers of this technology, and some of their talks, and the guy who runs that are really interesting. So I definitely implore people to go and watch some of his stuff. But with the AR stuff, it's the best way I can really describe it, or is it kind of almost gives you that real-time competence in something, and as long as the solution's done well enough, then me and you should have the potential to wear a pair of glasses each and look at something very complex, say I don't know, a complex pump or an engine of some description, and the solution sees what we see and then tells us which screws to undo at any given time, how tight to do them up, which part to take off. And in effect, we should be able to take that thing apart and put it back together with no prior training whatsoever, just in real time.
Yeah.
So it's not so much, it's enabling this real-time capability where you're not having to go through this really huge pre-learning period or pre-training period and having to memorize this stuff and then somehow consider how to embed it. It's kind of almost expediting a lot of that, especially in the technical side of things, and putting headsets on and being able to see through the walls of particular things. A couple of friends doing great things with super yachts and stuff like that. And again, it's really, really cool because it enables the engineers who are on board to put the headset on. It knows where you are on the boat because of location-based stuff and things like this. And you can just flick the walls away. You want to see through the wall and see what's behind that panel, you just flick it out of the way and you can see what wires, cables, plumbing, whatever's behind there. And it just saves time and makes that engineer more efficient at what they do. So when people say, "Oh, it's just a fad, it's just a craze, it's just something that's cool," I don't understand that pessimism. Perhaps previously it has been, but there are loads of great use cases right now. VW are doing 10,000 people will be trained using augmented reality and stuff like that now. And these companies, these companies have been at the forefront of innovation in a host of technology areas for 100 years, some of them. Why would we doubt them now in terms of if they see good reason to use it, then why should we just still call it a trend or a fad?
I think for me, the way I summed it up is VR and AR. So AR is your 4K television, VR is your 3D television. So AR is the real time, the quick, there's less limitations to it. I don't need a headset. I can get AR on my phone. VR is kind of not a better experience, but it's a very kind of semi-isolated experience now. And I just think, people talk about, how can we make people learn? Well, you can't. Don't ask that question. How can we make people learn? You look at the AR is a great resource. Right now, if something was designed perfect, you should, like you say, you should be able to look at that engine and you don't need to learn. I can just make you do that job better.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and that's kind of where we talk about learning. Does it need to be the learning right now? No,
definitely not. It's organisations aren't ready. I don't think that. I'd probably say that there's a number of areas which, and I talk about it as if it's the next 10 years have already kind of almost happened with it. Do you know what I mean? So I'm, as I mentioned before, a huge optimist and a huge advocate of these technologies, and I've seen some really amazing things done with it, and some the potential for it is what I tend to see rather than the right now. And perhaps it's a little bit too far ahead for a lot of companies or organisations to consider. I mean, don't forget, you speak to a lot of these big companies, and they're just doing e-learning, for example, or something, and so we can't expect the industry to be right up to where we think in terms of the art of the possible with these technologies. I don't think that there's a huge amount of great examples of how it's being used at the moment, because it's quite, I guess, immature. I think the potential for it's massive, but I'm not sitting here suggesting that everything should be virtual reality. I'm not sitting here suggesting that how things are being done now is being automatically being done. Remember, I've mentioned before that if you were ever to suggest that by nature, you're probably incorrect, right? Yeah. I can just see that it has great potential. I think that when the technology's matured a little bit, it's going to make things a lot easier. The barrier to entry with it will be reduced. The people who were responsible for coming up with these learning initiatives or creative initiatives or technical initiatives that are going to drive this technology forward, the more that they think of great use cases for it, the more it's going to obviously push along and stuff like that. And I guess the people who are then going to produce the actual content. So, the people who are going to make these experiences. I mean, you see, we're really pushing the boundaries. We've got a virtual reality solution, and it enables you to speak to somebody on the other side of the globe, and you just speak to an avatar. And I think, well, do you know what I mean? Just do a FaceTime and see them in real life.
Yeah.
We don't. It doesn't. It seems that okay. Well, perhaps we need to do things with it like that help us explore what is possible with it. But it just seems that, I don't know. Maybe I've seen some examples where it's a bit short on imagination.
I think from an imagination point of view, you look at these Black Mirror episodes; they're great. I love them. But we talk about kind of. I think I was reading a couple of months ago about AR being put into a contact lens, and we're wearing this contact. You're seeing a very, very watered down version of that now with Snapchat glasses.
Yeah.
But I just think to myself, sit back and go, yeah, it's great, but how do you deploy to a contact lens? I think that's something where, the technology is there, but what you're expecting someone to come in and go, well, you've got to put this contact lens in. Now, how do you deploy the resource of whatever fixing an engine to a contact lens? I think it'll always be potentially that way. It'll break down, not necessarily the technologies to do it.
Yeah.
But Black Mirror.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's good stuff, isn't it? I like Black Mirror. It's dark. I like anything that's dark, really. But yeah, like I say, big advocate for the technology. I think it's definitely you're gonna see a lot more of it. I'm not automatically saying that it's a golden bullet. Far from it. In fact, I'd say that probably a lot of the examples that are out there that you can see are probably driving some pessimism for the technology. But I think with any innovation, you have that phase, early days, where people are finding great ways to use it, and so not every idea is going to be great, but the potential for it's huge because, like I say, of the way that it is, speaks to you on a human level. It's humans on a technology on a human path, not humans on a technology path.
Yeah.
We're not designed to crouch over a phone 24 hours a day.
Well, and at the end of the day, it's a tool for your toolbox, right?
Yeah.
If the only tool you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And I think it does come down to that right tool for the right time, for the right thing.
Yeah.
And I think you do see that a lot now. It's like this, the map eye, this is a brand new tool. Let me make everything that way.
Yeah. No, absolutely, mate. Absolutely. It's just it's a great vehicle to deliver, hopefully, great content and experiences, and it does it on a far deeper level than other mediums prior to it. So if you consider it just on those things, then that's the point I'm making. I'm not saying it's going to fix all of the problems in L&D. I'm not saying that it's going to be seen everywhere and all companies are going to use it. I'm not saying that. I'm just an optimist, and I see huge potential in it, and I think other people should too.
Cool. Okay, so if I was to ask you, you get to pick 2 hours you have to relive every day, okay. In your professional life. Okay.
Yeah.
What and we're talking on the whole spectrum of what you do.
Okay.
What 2 hours would it be?
2 hours. I'd have to relive every day.
Yeah, so it's like the 2 most enjoyable hours. And you can't use lunches and breaks.
Okay. Crikey. I have to say, it's a difficult one to choose. I have a lot of great times working here with the guys at Mobedia, and they're my friends, and we do exciting things, and that's not to say that it doesn't come without its pressures. I'd probably try and choose one of those hours that was something that was completely enjoyable and one of those hours that was completely stressful, because with that balance, I think you need that. I think you need that balance. So I'd probably say, perhaps one of the more one of the more enjoyable things that worked early days when I first started working at Mobedia. This isn't so long as well, we're talking 3 years ago, and I'm thinking to myself, right, okay, how do I go out and speak to people in the training and learning world? I don't know anything about this world right back then. And thinking, okay, I'll speak to training companies, right? I'll see what they're doing. Let's give them a call. Let's see what they're doing. And so I got a list of 20 of the training companies I wanted to speak to, and I figured out who I might want to speak to at those companies, and got lists of the senior teams and did all that kind of stuff, the typical BDM stalkering and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
And I think, okay, well, how do I stand out? How do I make something interesting? How do I do something a bit risky? And so I had one of my colleagues working with me at the time, helping me with some of this stuff, and I asked her to draw a picture of this training company's operations director. So I got his picture off LinkedIn, blew it up, printed it off, gave it to her, and said, "You've got 20 minutes, draw a picture of me with a felt tip on that big bit of paper there, A3. And she drew it. It was actually quite good because she was far more artistic than I thought she was going to be. And so I said, "Oh, guys, you have to scrap that. It's too good. Make it way worse. Give him bloodshot eyes. Make it. Let's make don't flatter the guy."
Yeah.
And we rolled it up and we put it in a box, and I just sent it to him in a tube. And I thought, God, what am I doing here? Crikey, what am I doing? And about 2 weeks later, I rang them and I said, "Hi, is that such and such?" It wasn't. I'd rang somebody else at the office on purpose.
Okay.
Is that such and such? It's Spence from Mobedia. And he went, "Oh, you're the guy who sent such and such the picture, right?" And I went, "Yeah." And he went, "He fucking hates your guts." But because of that, we all love you. And so I went, right, okay, fair enough. And so we described what we did, and he described what they did. And it just so happened that at the time they were looking to partner with digital consultancies and digital and innovation type agencies, because they were really looking to explore what they could, compound their fantastic reputation within the vertical and that they worked in with what we did in digital. So we met them, and they came to meet us, and the guy who had sent the picture wasn't at that meeting, just the other guys. But then we went and did a much deeper introduction, and it was also a joint pitch to a big bank at the time. So that few hours creating or coming up with that idea to send that picture and it being risky, that was maybe 1 hour that I would choose to relive again, because that was fun, right?
Yeah.
And it was risky and it might not have paid off. But if it didn't, who cares? Do you know what I mean? I upset someone somewhere. Oh, they'll survive. It'll be okay. But do you know what? That risk paid off. And so I'd probably say that the second hour I would choose as us winning a sizable piece of work by partnering with that company. And it turned out to be a really cool project. And so off the back of me offending this particular chap, I stood out from the other people that were trying to reach out to them, and we organised a meeting, and they liked us and we liked them, and then we pitched and won some great work together. And we've been working together for since I've been at Mobedia, so for 3 years. We've done a host of great projects together as a company, and they're now really good friends of ours. And to this day, the chap who I sent the picture to, he still calls me the serial killer because he said it was that creepy. But
That's good. That's good.
Non-convention in conventional situations.
I love it. So, quick brain teaser.
Okay.
So if Mickey is a mouse,
Yep.
Donald is a duck,
Mm-hmm.
what's Goofy?
Goofy's a dog.
Is it? Because Pluto's a dog, right? And Goofy has a hat and wears and drives a car.
Oh, that's a good. Goofy is a duck as well, is he not? Goofy. Oh, hang on. Oh, crikey.
So he's got big teeth and like quite a long nose. I'll leave that one with you. Just to ponder on that one.
Goofy.
So, I guess right now, what are your 3 main resources? What you use? So maybe it's for your own development, or maybe it's tools what you're using right now.
Mm-hmm.
What are they?
So LinkedIn I use a lot of, because it enables me to nurture a network and learn from that network myself and antagonize that network. And when I say that, I don't mean it in a negative connotation. I mean to be able to spark conversation and curiosity and get people talking amongst themselves and amongst the industry, and for me to be involved in that, and that helps me develop. Hopefully it inspires some curiosity in them and perhaps helps them develop too, and helps everybody perhaps be more creative with coming up with cool solutions. So LinkedIn's one of them. Lectures, much to friends of mine's frustration, is if I'm given the TV remote, I'll just put lectures on and sit there and just watch lectures all day long. Physics lectures in particular, or it might be stuff about neuroscience and things like that, behaviour and things. So things like the Royal Institute, Fermilab, these kinds of organisations, stuff that NASA do obviously all the time, is really interesting. The Royal Institute is a particularly fascinating organisation for me. So that's another resource, I guess, that I'd use, because they just have great speakers and stuff. And then the third one is, I suppose, books.
Okay.
Just normal books. So they're probably the three things that I use the most.
Okay.
But then again, I'm not a designer, so I don't do any of the designing. I don't use Photoshop. Well, I can use Photoshop to a degree, but that's why we have a great team here to do that. Is I have to be able to talk about it and to talk about how great the team are, but I don't do those things that they do so well.
Okay. So what's the one resource? 1-2 resources what you use to understand L&D?
Yeah, people.
Okay.
So I spend as much of my time as I can interacting with people who work in the L&D industry, as mentioned, to learn as much as I can from them, perhaps give my own spin on things and share my own insight working on a myriad of projects for a myriad of companies, and going into that open-minded and saying that, ask me anything, because I will ask you anything, and perhaps we'll both learn something from that. So I kind of go into it with that attitude. So I'd say the main thing that I learned about L&D is the people in it itself. And then the other thing is, for me, understanding people in general is very interesting. So like anthropology and behaviour and, all that kind of stuff, right? So other sources are just kind of the same sources that I go to try and understand science in general anyway, off the back of that. So understanding the fundamentals behind who people are, why we do the things we do, sometimes such crazy things, why do we have these bizarre behaviours as people, and then understanding how we might be able to draw parallels and draw and see those patterns, and then apply those to driving change in people for the betterment of them or us or me or whoever.
Okay, cool. So who's the people who you keep an eye on at the moment? Maybe it's up and coming people, maybe it's people who've been in the industry for a while.
Mm-hmm.
I use industry learning and development, but maybe you can use that to whatever you want. But who's the 3 people who you're keeping an eye on? Don't limit it to a number, but yeah.
I could give you. I could name you hundreds of people that I keep an eye on, that I'm inspired by, that I learn from on a daily basis, and that's the beauty of systems like LinkedIn, is because it gives you that eagle-eyed view of what's going on within a particular industry or within a particular field, and enable you to draw patterns or to draw themes out and things like that. So I'll actually say yourself is one of those people, to be fair, Danny, because you set up the network on WhatsApp, and you opened up a doorway to the industry for me, and that has really helped me a lot in terms of my own development, my own understanding of the industry, and the themes that drive the industry, the trends that drive the industry, the challenges that L&D people face, the challenges that organisations face, in terms of inspiring their people and making them really kind of live in the moment and be the best versions of themselves, all that kind of holistic stuff. So thanks for that, first of all.
Thank you.
And you credit where credit's due, of course. Other people that I like to follow and that I'm certainly interested in, there's a chap called Jamie. I've just been having a really good conversation with him, and I'm really bad with names, so everybody please forgive me. That's right, yeah, absolutely. So some of the stuff that we've been talking about recently on digital body language is really, really cool. I really like Laurie, of course, that you've spoken to recently, and I love what she has to say and the way that she comes across and the way that she talks about it. Of course, everybody knows John Hinchcliffe. He's a big character and a great guy, and his enthusiasm and his energy is it's almost addictive to talk to him about stuff like this. I can't name enough of them. There's so many, and there's so many just here in Manchester. A number of groups that we're involved in where we're going to be doing talks and organising things like that. So I couldn't. It would be unfair for me to single out just a few.
Yeah.
There's too many.
So I've got Jamie on the podcast soon.
Okay, cool.
And John.
Yeah.
Getting John on as well.
Yeah, John would be cool. Isn't it? Nick Shackleton-Jones, of course, everyone's favourite. And I mean, I don't know, Nick Wilde. There's loads. So yeah, there's a lot of people that are very, very intelligent and very clever. So
cool. Okay, so we're in an environment now where we get data overload.
Mm-hmm.
We're getting absolutely bombarded by data. Sometimes we don't even want to be, and we are. And we talk about. I did a little video probably about a year ago now,
mm-hmm.
about digital detox and phubbing and kind of what it is.
Mm-hmm.
But I suppose it's a question with two parts. One, how do you manage your stress? Is there any tips or tricks you give?
Mm-hmm.
And then two, how do you switch off?
Yeah.
And then if there's a third part, how do you regain focus when you find yourself losing focus?
Yes, good questions, fantastic questions. So if we talk about the stress one for a second first. So actually, a lot of the times, I'll try and actually embrace stress. So I touched a little bit before about having, my life experiences up until this point have driven me to have just this attitude towards dealing with adversity or stress. And I guess everybody experiences those ups and downs in their life, right? And that's certainly not unique to me. So that's not the point I'm making. But I've kind of come to this time now in my life where you go, okay, well, you either be eaten at this point, right? Or you stand and you do something about it. So for me, it depends on what that stress is. But more often than not, I won't be in denial of it. I'll try and embrace it. I'll try and really process and understand what it is and apply some level of pragmatism or objectivity to get out of that stress. So I think if it's, for example, stress that's being caused by a commercial target, then it's about figuring out how I hit that commercial target. If it's stress to do with some other area in my personal life, and again, it all depends on what it is. But for me, I think it's about not fearing the stress, but embracing it, not being nervous of it as such. But it's okay to feel stressed. It's okay to feel nervous. It's okay to have these things happening to you. It's having the ability to step outside of that stress and be able to look at it from that perspective and understand why and understand how you get out of it. So a lot of the times for me, it's being physical. I'm a physical guy. I've always trained, I play football, boxing, whatever it might be. And so physicality is a big stress relief for me. Going to the gym all the time, always in a gym, always training, all that kind of stuff. So if I feel physically capable, I kind of feel more capable in general, more able to deal with adversity, more able to deal with more at one body and mind, that kind of stuff. So dealing with stress is more often than not getting rid of any screen that I need to look at, whether it be my phone or my laptop, and getting down to basics and doing exercise. Okay. I think, but I think, like I say, a lot of the times it comes down to your attitudes towards how you deal with it, being more pragmatic and not feeling anxious because you're stressed, or the other way around, but just understanding that those are quite natural things to be experiencing, and so that it's okay to experience them. It's what you do from that point, and it's your actions that define you. It's not how you feel about something that do so.
Okay, so how do you find it when you're losing focus? So let's just say you've got a big project on, and you constantly work on this project, and it is easy to kind of come off and lose focus with it. How do you regain the focus?
So it depends on what I'm losing focus on. If it's something that's really time sensitive and I don't have time to take a day away from it, if it's something that's got to go out tomorrow or the day after or whenever, and I just need to clear my mind from it, I'll play ping pong with one of the guys in the office. And the reason for that is you can have a really short game. It takes less than 5 minutes. And because you have to focus on ping pong to be able to play it proficiently. It's a difficult game to play. It brings in a whole host of things. You have to have good hand-eye coordination. You have to be able to control and apply the right amount of force to the ball in any given scenario. So you can't just start thrashing it. You can't let your frustration get the better of you. And so going into that, outside of that thing that's causing you the stress, and going into a scenario where you have to consider all the things I've just mentioned there for 5 quick minutes, and you're bringing in, your proprioceptive system in such a way that it's unpredictable, and that's the important part. You cannot predict, mainly where that ball is going to go perfectly. So you're having to constantly scan the location of that ball and move your hand in 3D space and move your body to be able to do that. Now, by going through that process, you focus your mind. And even if it's just for 5 minutes, you go back and you sit back at your desk. And if there's some kind of competitive element that you've included in that, like you put a fiver on the table with your mate or something like that, which you have to do, and we've got a league on the whiteboard, and I'll show you that shortly. And it gets very competitive. But usually you sit back at your desk and you just have a level of focus, which normally enables you to get past that blocker or to get refocused again. So a short, sharp burst of something that's physically and mentally quite testing and quite tricky to master in a competitive scenario is a good way to refocus, I believe.
And it's a great shout, like you mentioned ping pong as well. The reason why I say this is because a lot of my wackiest ideas come from playing ping pong.
Yeah.
The reason why that is because I don't have to think about being creative.
Yeah, exactly.
So I can switch off that and then the muscle kicks in.
Exactly.
And it was my mentor when I very first started out in L&D who kind of said, let's go play ping pong.
Yeah.
And because I was trying to think of this, how can I do this? And I got to a point where I was overloading myself with ideas. I couldn't kind of see the wood for the trees.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is why the bugbear is when you hear people talking about, just put a ping pong table in there, I'm like, actually, there's more to that ping pong table.
Yeah, exactly. And you think.
Yeah.
I never foresaw that it would have that difference in the office. It's genuinely had a positive impact on our office. We have the studio here in Manchester. We have 20 to 25 people working here all the time. And more often than not, we're having to think creatively, or we're having to think about technical or innovative ways to get around a problem. And more often than not, we do that collaboratively, of course. And more often than not, you get to a point where you have some kind of blocker and you have to think and get around it. And if you're really, really trying to hammer a square block through a round hole, you're never going to get the square block through the round hole. Put the hammer down. Yeah? Go to the ping pong table, play ping pong. Yeah, you know what I mean? Have a short game. Yeah. You're not thinking about the hammer or the block or the square hole or the round hole or the triangular hole. You're thinking about getting that ball back over the net with just the right amount of spin to put your mate out of action and win that fight.
I'll win that fight.
Right, I'm not encouraging people to bet on sport, but and that's all you're thinking about. And whether you win or you lose, it doesn't matter because it's a friendly game. But you sit back down, and all of a sudden, you see it slightly differently. You see something that you maybe didn't see before. You see a way around or some bridge over some river, which is the problem, whatever analogy you want to use, that maybe you didn't before. And I've seen it happen and experienced it happen myself a number of times. This is not just something which it is assumption. It is something that I could give you a number of scenarios where it's happened. I could have you sit in the office with us and watch and show you how a quick game of ping pong helps people problem solve. I could prove it to you. It's testable and repeatable.
Yeah.
So
it's great. It's so we've heard you mention Mobivia, but tell me about it. Tell me what we do. What I say they.
Yeah.
Because you use it as a business they.
Okay.
But tell me about that. Kind of what do you do?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks very much. So Mobedia is a digital innovation agency, and so people say, well, what on earth does that mean? Well, at its highest level, we make content and products and experiences. And people say, okay, well, what does that actually mean? And do you have any specialisms? So we exist to drive meaningful change in organizations and how they connect with people. Now, you notice I didn't say their people. People in general, really, because we not only do we work with L&D and organisational change and internal functions, and we apply non-conventional thinking to conventional scenarios and helping them connect with those people and engage them. but we still also have our foot kind of doing outward comms and marketing type stuff. So it really comes down to understanding people and then applying ways to either to apply some call to action or influence the way that they think about something, or get them to buy a product, or whatever it might be. Yeah. So that's what Mobedia does. So that we're made with about 30 people. We have a fantastic film and animation team. We do 3D graphics, and we make serious games and fun games. That's where we kind of come from. We love messing around with games, which is great. We have a fantastic technical team who are responsible for building, quite often very complex solutions to our creative guys' creative ideas when it comes to engaging people or creating the best onboarding experience, or how do we embed this new behavioral change piece we're doing, or whatever it might be. So we have a great technical team and a design team, so we're creative and technical, and we apply that to helping organizations step into some of these newer ways of thinking about engaging people and getting the best from them, and imploring great cultures in these organizations.
Cool. So, I mean, I appreciate business is business, and some of the stuff will be NDA'd and you won't be able to talk about, but is there an example of kind of some of the good stuff what maybe they've done?
Yeah,
what
absolutely.
you can share, maybe?
Yeah, definitely. So I'll start perhaps I'll start maybe. I mean, there's a spectrum that we work across. So some of the stuff is quite conventional. So that's when I say conventional, I mean not because it's mediocre work. I mean it's conventional in the sense that it's kind of we're commissioned to create digital learning, sales training, that kind of stuff for Kia. They won't mind us saying that, of course. And it's quite a funny story actually. So there's a survey. It's the NFD. It's quite a long and boring name for a survey, but in effect, the OEM vehicle manufacturers are asked the dealership staff are asked certain questions about, how well does your company provide you training? How well do they do this? And there's a whole host of questions. It's not just about training, but we took this. All of Kia's dealership staff do our sales training content, customer care stuff, and all that stuff, right? Yeah. So film, animation, and interactive stuff. We've done learning games for them and stuff. And we took Kia from number 7th to number 1. So they're rated highest for the quality of their digital training in the UK now, out of all of the other car manufacturers, which is great. We do their new vehicle launch stuff, so I can't mention the names of the actual vehicles, but every time they launch a new vehicle, they'll usually do some really cool events and face-to-face stuff, and then we'll do all of the interactive 3D. We were exploring really cool web technologies, WebGL, and all this kind of really cool 3D stuff. And so we'll launch those vehicles. Now, the last 3 new vehicle launch modules we did, each one of them has beat the previous one's NPS score. They use NPS to measure the sentiment of the learning, right, by the learners. And so we've beaten their top score, and we've beaten our own top score for the last 3 times running. So it just gets better and better. So that's kind of some of the more conventional type learning stuff that we do, but is very effective. And then over on the other side of that, we do really cool stuff with augmented reality and adventure and play, right, and stuff like this. And so really cool projects that we've done in a host of industries, retail or whatever it might be, in terms of how do we create the best onboarding experience. And okay, well, who are you onboarding? What's the message, and who are you as a brand? You go through all this big analysis with them, and then you think of clever ways to use, for example, an onboarding buddy application that we did, which brings in location-based contextual micro learning stuff, video and things like that, but also really cool 3D augmented reality stuff. And it's like I say, it's just a great way to get people engaged with the brand from even before the first day. So after interview accept, you download the app and it unlocks cool content that's personal to you. On your first day, you turn up and all of a sudden you get new missions, and rather than getting pulled into a classroom and being lectured to and then getting taken around on a kind of awkward tour of the building, everybody's given a different mission to go and carry out. You've got to go over to that department and unlock this piece of, and the app knows where you are in the headquarters, and you hold the phone up and you get content come out in 3D and stuff like that. And so it brings in ideas of adventure and and stuff like that. So that's pretty cool. We're doing some cool stuff with this hazard perception stuff actually, which is not just VR and AR stuff, but actually it's using 3D browser-based stuff. It's to enable a company, a big fleet management company in the US. I can't say who they are, but it's for over a million drivers, and it's like the hazard perception test that you did when you're doing your driving test, where you just click on the DVD and it gives you a score or whatever. But this is a lot more immersive, and we've been out to America to film all of these scenarios and all this cool stuff. So that's at its base level is to save lives, right? If somebody is better equipped to spot a hazard, then you save lives. But also the monetary, the amount of money that they will potentially save. We've done all the research into this in terms of reduced insurance costs and reduced costs in terms of fender benders and small accidents is huge. But obviously, at its most important is you literally saving people's lives with it. So that's really cool.
Wow.
So yeah, there's loads of cool stuff. So it's on a spectrum, kind of the more conventional digital training stuff, right up to really forward-thinking, immersive things and stuff like that. So
awesome. So I'm just about every time now.
Mm-hmm.
We're kind of wrapping up. Like, what's at the beginning of the day, the call? I said call, we're in a meeting.
Yeah.
Why do it? But you picked some numbers. You had 10, 19, 85, and 100.
Yeah.
Okay, so these numbers tally up to some random objects.
Okay.
Okay, you're on a desert island and you have these objects.
Yeah.
Okay, you have a glow stick,
Okay.
a rubber band,
Mm-hmm.
you've got a puddle of water.
I can note this. Go on, mate. So I've got I've got a glow stick, a rubber band.
Yeah, a puddle of water.
Yeah.
And the game Twister.
Okay.
What do you do with them?
Okay. So we've got a glow stick, a rubber band, a puddle of water, and Twister. And this. I've got a certain amount of each of those. Does that have anything to do with the numbers, or have they just?
Yeah, no, you just got one of each.
One of each. Okay. And I'm on a desert island.
Yeah.
Puddle of water, rubber band, Twister.
Don't forget the glow stick.
Oh yeah, okay, the glow stick as well. Okay, so I'm quite tempted to say something along the lines of I'd use the Twister and I'd use the mat from Twister to create a way of condensating moisture or vapor from the air into drinking water. So at night you're going to have a lot of moisture in the air when the temperature drops, but that's going to be it will be fresh. So it won't be salty, and then you condensate it against the surface of the Twister mat and have it drip down into some kind of receptacle. Obviously, I haven't got a bottle there, but I guess you could probably make something again after ripping off a bit of the Twister mat. I don't know. The glow stick, I'd use just in case a helicopter went by or a boat went by, and I just need to snap it and try and stand out in the dark or something like that. And the rubber band, I'd use to tie my stupid long daft haircut back and stop it from going in my eyes. The puddle of water, I'd splash around in like a toddler, because why the hell not?
Awesome. So,
is there a particular answer I should have given for any of those?
Nope. Isn't it a right or wrong
Okay.
answer? That's the best thing. So, if I asked you right at the start, I said, what is it you wanted to be when you grow up? When you got asked that question when you was young. And as you know, we never stop growing, ever.
Yeah.
And that whole perception of, oh, well, that's it. You've reached adult age now, that's it.
Yeah.
So if I was to ask you this question to the Spencer now, what is it you want to be when you grow up? What would your answer be?
It would be a... Oh, it's a good one, because I'm so super tempted to say an aeronautics engineer, but do you know what? What I want to be when I grow up is to have the resource available to be a pilot, to get my pilot's license, and to have the resource available to me so that I don't have to necessarily work. I can concentrate on the things that really get me out of bed in the morning, which are the things I mentioned in a logline, really understanding the universe. So hopefully by the time I'm older, I'm successful enough to have the financial and time resource available to do the things that I really want to do, which is fly and understand.
Awesome. So, Spencer, where can people find out about you and a bit about Mobedia?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going through a bit of a site revamp at the moment, but obviously everyone's welcome to the website. It's www.wearemobedia.com. So it's Mobedia, M-O-B for Bravo, E-D-I-A. And I always have to get that in there because people often mishear me on the phone. Or just type Spencer Martin, M-A-R-T-I-N, into LinkedIn. and I'm the guy with the VR headset on with the black and white picture, and I work for Mobedia, so I should be easily found. I do have a Twitter handle and stuff. I'm never on there, so there's no point in messaging me on there. But yeah, drop me a message. We can talk about planes and science and all kinds of nerdy stuff. It's cool.
Awesome, Spencer. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Let me promise you, the pleasure's all mine.
Cheers, Spencer.
Cheers,
Cheers.
Danny.
Bye-bye.